So I will call the meeting to order. Hi, Sophie. Thanks for being here. So I'm Lisa Sanders. Penny Benelli is not online. Is that correct? No. And Hinshaw is here. Shana Kalnitsky is here. Caitlin Miller is here. Katie Murphy is not here unless she's online. Nope, no Katie Murphy. Donovan Nichols is not here. Lois Perla is. Michael Ripley is. Jerry Usi is. And Adrian Williams is here.
You see, I told you.
I was working on this part. UC. Is that right?
Yes.
UC. Yeah. Okay, I'm putting the line over the U. So we'll get that next time. Just a couple of really quick procedural things. I just wanted to remind people that if there's a procedural error, or even if you're just feeling uncomfortable about the way things are going, you don't have to be acknowledged to bring up a point of order. So you would just say point of order. And then you could either add the very specific thing that you wanted changed, like there's side conversations going on, or you could just say, I would like to go to formal meeting rules, and we could do that. The other thing is if you're ever wanting to take a recess, that can be a normal motion, but it can also interrupt what's already on the table. So you can just say, I want to recess. You don't have to provide a reason, but you can. If there's a second, we vote on it and can take that recess. Other than that, we'll go to tonight's agenda. Are there any additions or deletions to that? And Sophie, in the meantime, both Penny and Donovan joined us. Yes. Is there a motion to accept tonight's agenda as is?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we've got the agenda approved as is. The next order of business is public comment. Is there anyone here? Randy?
Randy Miles, Chester. I know you're gonna be talking about the budget tonight and how to present it and stuff like that. And I hope we've all given it some good thought. I hope that somehow you're going to be leaning toward what is coming through on Act 73 with condensing classes and stuff. I really feel you need to start looking in that direction. If you just pass the budget on as it is, I think you're going to have a big problem. And so I think you've got to show the taxpayers you've got to give it some. And I know it's going to hurt, and I know it's hard. But I think it's got to get done, and we're heading in that direction anyways. And that's where we're going to get our biggest money off the budget that we have, as bad as it is to say. I'm not against teachers, I'm not against students, I really am not. I talked about this years ago, heading down the road, looking at what was going to be happening. We have a $700,000 increase just on staying where we are. A lot of money. I don't know exactly the ins and outs. I know there's probably about 300 something for special education. And I know we can't touch that. But what I'm wondering if the board can consider is auditing special ed. And I don't mean to pick on it. I'm not saying bad things about it. I want every kid to have his justice with education. 200,000, more than 200,000, 150,000. That's a lot of money to put on public school system. It's a chunk of money that's on a pie chart. So I'm hoping we can really look at that and make sure that those students are getting their money's worth, and so aren't the rest of the students as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Rand.
Thank you. Anyone online?
Don't see any hands.
Neither. Okay, that will, did you have something?
I actually, could we take the note taker off the main screen and have the gallery visible?
Is that something you can do or I can do?
I do.
Is that-
We can pin the library. Oh, no, that's only on my screen. I think it would need to be done at there.
What's that?
To pin the library on that screen.
Oh. Usually that one changes depending upon who talks. Let's see if I can pin the library. No, library. That's what pin means, so if I hit that, I'm not gonna shut everything down?
Correct.
My cow. Supposedly it's pin. I changed on my screen, but it's not,
Yeah, I don't know if it has to be changed on the actual.
I don't know if I can or not. Poor Sophie. There we go. See, I talked and it changed. Maybe you can do it from here.
Well done.
Good sides. And
All right, our first order of old business is to consider the request by the contractor to make a final decision on getting PCV remediation started this summer. And we've had the opportunity to read the note from Craig to Todd and Lane. Lane, would you like to share more about what is needed?
Yeah, so when the board made the original decision, I don't remember if it was, we were just talking about that, if it was Plan B or C for the remediation. The board had also approved it kind of contingent upon waiting for the availability to see if we could get some grant money to be able to replace the windows and the HVAC units that were part of it. We've been working, and Cheryl especially, on trying to access those grants. The USDA grant typically doesn't go over 30,000, and they are unsure of their funding. The congressional grants, you've been able to put in for 2 of them, but the odds of getting them are extremely slim, and then it's going to be a bit of a wait time. And so I think, at least for me, and I'll let Cheryl speak on her own behalf, my recommendation would be to let them just move ahead with the remediation work. Doesn't mean we're not going to continue to work on the grants, but if we do that, it's just going to hold everything up. Put the work off. Sure.
If we happen to get one of those grants and we were already moving ahead, would we be able to use it for whatever small amount we covered?
Possibly.
So we asked for 2.5 million and we would only get 75% of that, is so that
Okay.
1.75, which would leave 625,000 of the district would still have to cover on top of that. But I'm looking at what they've given in the past. I don't know that it put all my eggs in the basket. So I think moving forward, because the other concern would be something which even we wouldn't use the $5 million that we.
I kind of feel the same as I have from the beginning. If the money's finally there, let's use what we got. Or-
How does this make the vote that was taken at your last meeting? Good time.
That was on the boiler. Yeah.
Okay. And that decision was made because the feeling was that the money was there. Go ahead and move forward. Is that?
So the boiler was a separate issue.
Yeah.
And that decision was based on the fact that it's, we are likely to need one before the next
Yeah,
season.
we gotta get it in before. There's a window of install prior to the heating season.
Whereas this is not money, the money that's here for this is not money we can use for anything. It's money that can move ahead for the PCB remediation. And the grants would be for things like putting in new windows rather than scraping and replacing them.
So for the record, just so we're clear, what is the full amount that we would be on the hook for the remediation and the full amount for the boiler? In full amount. They're two separate issues, so we have two different.
So the remediation work, the $5 million is coming from the DEC,
Okay.
and to the best of my knowledge, we have no additional cost.
So we will not be absorbing any of that.
Right.
Okay.
So if we did the windows and the HVAC, likely we would have. facilities
And what would that be?
roughly 620,
If we got,
if we got the grant.
not the grant. But
If we don't get the grant, it's 5 mil.
2.5.
2.5.
That we would be on the hook for it.
If we choose to move forward with the windows. Right now, they feel that they can
Same. Or
save them,
Yes.
take the talking out from around the window and not disturb everything else.
So they don't actually physically have to pull the windows out.
Yeah. They said they were successful at a couple other projects.
And that's included in the five.
Yeah.
Question, did they, they're pretty sure that once they start disturbing things, that it's not going to mean that the windows are gonna need to be replaced?
I don't think they can give us that guarantee.
No, but Carol asked the important question is, if they damage one of our units or whatnot, then, it's their insurance. And
Okay,
It should be. Yeah.
okay, that's important. Thanks.
The boiler, Adrian, I don't recall the amount off the top of my head, but,
Probably.
thank you.
Ready for a motion on this one?
I move that we approve the remediation that we just.
I said it. That's
Any discussion? Further discussion? Okay, all in favor? Any opposed? Okay, so we have approved moving forward with the PCB remediation.
Can you make sure that Sophie got that motion in the minutes? She's doesn't have the same Amber in her.
Got it. And that's a good point.
Well, she's new to the conversation.
Yeah. Yeah, so that motion was to move forward with the PCB remediation that is funded by the DEC.
And it was made by Lois Bill.
Thank you. And seconded by Jerry UC. Excellent.
Would it help for us to say our names when we're making motions until she's used to our voices?
Yes.
Great. Thanks for making that request. Excellent. The next order of business is for us to specify the set of budgets for the upcoming year that we would like to be able to discuss and consider for warning at the next meeting. So this is not picking among budgets, but this is narrowing down the selection of all possible budgets to a set that we would be able to discuss and have actual numbers for, since all possible budgets make Cheryl cringe. And this is discussion. I think at the end, we should make sure we've got all of the ones that people are looking for, but there's no kind of specific motion at this point. Yes,
There's
Mike.
going to be a way to set up a graph, like say, this is what we originally had. And this is how it would affect the taxes in these towns. And if we level funded the budget, this is how it would affect the taxes, something like that.
Yeah, so I think we would start with the level services budget, which is what was put forward last time. I think that we would need the
I still want to have like the original budget in there, so we can always do the comparison.
Yep, and that's the level services one, right?
Yep.
That's one of
The one that the one that lost the vote.
Yes. I think a level funding budget would be kind of the low end, so that is keep the money the same as last year, which would involve cutting a lot of services.
It's called level funding.
And that's called level funding.
And so that's the same. You need to find that again.
Yeah.
It would be the same dollar amount as this current year's budget. But what impacts that is the CLA when you get to the tax rate, and I'll explain it when we get on.
But it makes, so it doesn't account for it, like, and it doesn't move as it should. It makes sense in my brain.
Yeah.
Don't know if that's a good thing, but yeah.
Level funded budget is 741,000 less than the level service.
Would you repeat that again?
This 741,000, give or take. I'll throw, I have all the budget sheets and the tax rates and things that we've done previously. I'll throw that in the board folder. I can probably do that today or tomorrow. I'm gonna allowed to do once the books are out. So that you know.
714, 319.
Oh, that was close. My old brain.
I had to dig it up too.
And then are there other budgets that people would like to be able to see and compare? So there's a lot of room between those two. So for example, we could go for something like 500,000 over level funding. That would be something.
Well, if they
Or-
have a number to say like every time we raise it 100,000, it would cost this much. That way we wouldn't have to say, okay, let's do 200, let's do 300. We just know off the top of our head by looking at it. Try to save a little bit of room in the brain. Not try to Carol, she's crazy.
But we need that information now to propose a budget based on that, right?
Yeah, if I can throw that up here if you want.
Yeah,
So what we're doing right now is trying to get the set of budgets that
Right.
we would decide on.
We have a max and a minimum, right?
Yeah,
This
I
was,
think so.
Yeah.
Let me log in.
Or a minimum in that. Go further, but
We wouldn't know what that would look like, or what that looked like in terms of programming and position. Is that outside of our?
So that's what Lane and Cheryl would be able to provide at the next
on
meeting,
there.
which is why we are needing to specify what are the ones that we want to see, and then they can come up with, this is what we would have to cut to get to that number.
Yeah, Cheryl did, what was your calculation you did, which was to keep our tax rates the same?
That's cut to 2.5 million.
So that's even lower than the level.
That'd be-
By a lot.
And that has to do with the CLA.
Mhm.
Right. But anyway.
Yeah, so that I think is good information for comparing.
And I don't know how difficult or hard it would be, but Lane's explanation of the 30 cents that's going up, you have control over 5 cents because the other 25 cents is going to other towns in the state.
Right.
And there's nothing we can do about that.
Yes,
So have something like that as part of it, yeah.
let's do the education, let's do the CO.
So I would love to see a budget in which that was $100,000 less than the level services budget. Just because to me, that seems like a significant amount in terms of showing progress, but hopefully without huge amounts of pain. So I'd like to at least see what that pain is.
So you're saying $841,000 less than the level. No, that was the, I'm sorry.
This level funding.
So level services is what failed at the last. So I'm
Right.
saying $100,000 less than that.
See what that would look like in terms of like. Which would be like 614,000 more than the level funding.
Right.
Yeah, okay. I don't. Did they? Yeah.
Are there other ideas?
I'm gonna share my screen of the green sheet, not green sheet, green column sheet that I gave you before. And I have some scenarios in it so you can kind of see, this is what I'll present when we have the options.
Give me extras.
Don't, because I just know where we're gonna go there, but so I will bring them next time.
Should work.
Yeah, go ahead, Tina.
I suggest that one point you might want to know is the middle between the max and the minimum. So it would be cutting 50%, it would, whatever that, it's the 360 some odd thousand that you have to take off to get to the minimum. Just for consideration, I think a lot of people would want to know.
I think you're right. Yep.
All right, so I've shared this before. Column D is the current budget that we're in. Column F is the budget that went out. I view this a little differently than the state because the state doesn't like you to see the CLA. So they do column J, where they have a lower CLA and then divide it by the state average CLA, which just confuses the issue, but you come out to the same answer. So in this first column, M over here, we move. So I did 3 different scenarios here. I did if we level column M as if we level funded the taxes. And essentially that's a $2.5 million cut. And we get close. Baltimore and Andover, because they reassessed lately, is a little bit different, but I got Chester within 2 cents and Cavendish within a few pennies. Column O is if we level funded the budget. So if we went back to the 18,627,000 that we have this year, that's where the tax rate would be. And then on column Q, so one of the things, the bills that's in legislation now is to change the yield by adding some money from to the education fund. And so the yield's going to go up to 9,170. That's the proposal. It hasn't gone up there. I've done backwards math to get it my way to get the 13,000, but that's what the tax rate would be if we level funded it with the new CLA. So I would do something like this with the different scenarios that you.
Right.
And Cheryl, based on what you presented here, basically, we need to get rid of $800,000 from the budget. To get rid of that overage in the 3rd or 4th row down.
So that 806,000 that's consistent across.
Yeah.
That is, so when you do your budget, you take away what you have for local revenue, which would be tuition. You can think what they are now. Tuition's the big one. But and then you come back to the number that's on column on row 9, and that is the amount of money you have to raise in taxes. Okay, so it's
Everything you need minus what you're already receiving from someone.
yeah, this column right here. That's what we have to raise in taxes. And then the next number down is our long-term weighted membership. So it's all of our students with all the weights applied to them that we always hear about. And then you divide that into what we need to raise for taxes to get us a cost per pupil. And then the cost per pupil is divided by the yield to get us our tax rate. So this line here is, I like to call it, well, not, that's not the right one. This 126 is where we are right now, 127.6. The base education rate, because if we just had to raise money without the CLA, that's what we would do. With CLA, is the numbers that are below it.
And the per pupil cost in the orange, the blue and the purple columns, those various scenarios, there are three very different per pupil costs. Are all of those within the threshold to avoid us being
Yes.
in the penalty phase?
I think 16.4 or 16.1,
Yeah.
somewhere in there.
Because all these scenarios reduce our budget and we were below grade one. So this is what I'll present when we.
What was the total amount of the cut last year to get it passed? You remember, Lois, years past, or the year before?
I wasn't here.
Yeah, go back and look.
Yeah, I don't know.
When it was voted down that first time?
Yeah,
It was very little.
it was not a lot.
It was mostly, it wasn't actually cutting things, it was that some things actually went away or were less expensive.
Yeah.
So for example, one person who was hired in place of another, so when we got closer to time, the actual amounts were less.
Got it.
You know, plus if you hire a new teacher to replace someone with a lot of years of experience, the expenses go down.
So what are the
Discretionary
shares?
spending.
Yeah. So one of the things that I'll look at when we talk about cutting is I'll go back through the stuff that I've done and it's really changed, did their benefit change and take those into account. That'll kind of be the top.
Wondering if before we decide which version of the budget we want to consider, can we have a discussion about what steps may or may have not been taken already to address some of the costs? You know, I think of, you know, your house is not heating well, so, oh, I need a new furnace, but you might have ductwork that's leaking and not efficient or needs to be cleaned. So things like, are we meeting the Act 73 class enrollment requirements or prepared to do that? Do we have staff on plans that are not succeeding and may not be returning? Do we have probationary staff that, you know, we might be able to not keep? Are there positions that are unfilled that we might fill with someone by consolidating a class to meet the enrollment requirements? Like things like that. I'd be really hesitant as a board to say, let's just, you know, cut this dollar amount because we're not live on the ground with the educators and the students. And it's easy to say, let's cut a dollar amount, but the prioritizing that happens in our buildings with the students is really key. And, you know, as we're all voters, we're all taxpayers, I want to know that I'm getting a good value. And I don't feel that I could put a budget forward to the towns and the voters that we haven't been a part of the due diligence or at least expected that due diligence before we give it our seal of approval. And I don't know how much leeway we have as a board to, you know, talk about those things or know what the conversations have been in the buildings because we need to support our students and our teachers and we need to be fiscally responsible.
Yeah, I think the role of the board is to find a way to ask Lane to do that. So we would not be picking the specific item and say, reduce this one, not that one, but finding a way to express that to Lane. Is that?
Yeah, because the operational side of, you know, how we try to meet the board's ends depends upon what staff we have. Depends upon what programs we have. So the board would typically state something along the lines of, you know, we would like you to cut 5% and make sure that those cuts are in alignment with, you know, the Act 73 requirements or taking advantage of X, Y, and Z. It'd be a more generic statement like that. And then it's our job to go in and make the cuts in the areas where we think it's going to have the least impact on the quality of education, while at the same time trying to preserve the ability to meet the board's mission before the ends.
So how do we put that? Because we know that the budget that we've already voted on was what was recommended and what the board approved before.
So you've kind of done that unless you're looking for something different than what you have here. So we're asking for, what would it look like if it was 100,000 less? What would it look like if we split the difference between the level service and the level funded budget? And also you'll have the level service and the level funded. So are there other ones that you want to look at? And the hopes is that also we'd be able to kind of say this is where the cuts would come from.
That's what we need to know.
I have a question, based on and what is the budget that we're talking about already? Based on the new teachers contract. And the one that we asked for, because we hadn't finalized the contract when we voted on the budget, we put over.
So I had put money in contingency for that,
Okay.
and I did go back and, buy it. And, I was $7,500.
Oh, okay.
So we lost.
That would be good.
Would you?
Yeah.
I have to preface this with, it's really being the new kid on the block. I was like, I'm not gonna say like several meetings, and then I'm like, give this also something deal. I'm gonna just be comfortable asking what seemed like really not intelligent, which is there any budget outside of this level services that means we will be cutting? There is the level, is the level service budget the only way we're not gonna end up cutting programs or teachers?
Yeah.
So anything we move down from here or change.
It means you're gonna lose something. And so that was the intent when we brought it forward. We looked at a couple different scenarios, and the reality is that our impact on people's tax rates, even if we do deep cuts, is fairly minimal. And so the level service was, we've got what we need to move forward with. We just want to preserve what we have.
I don't want to oversimplify it. I just for mine to understand it.
Yeah.
In those scenarios like the secretary. Okay.
So one of the reasons to make sure we're doing this tonight is it does need to be the board as a whole who's asking for these specific budgets. So we can't really come back in a couple of days and say, so just kind of putting that out there as before we wrap this up, do we think we have this set that we would like to look at the next?
I have 4 scenarios.
Big board?
Well, I
Oh,
have
right,
level
yeah,
service,
Right.
which is what we currently have.
Yep.
Level funded, which is cutting $714,319 from the budget. Cut $100,000 from the budget with an eye toward Act 73 and split the difference, so 357 dollars.
And level services too.
We did it.
Yeah. And so the principals have been working since the last meeting, and they're either complete or getting pretty close on, what adjustments would have to be made to get in line with Act 173. So, that data will be there. Just a reminder is that Megan Roy is actively working and doing a program review of special education with the hopes that there'll be recommendations that, will help. That won't fix things next year, but hopefully if there are good recommendations and we implement them successfully, it means that over the course of time that will change, 3 to 5 year spans.
What's the outlook on that? When those recommendations are gonna be?
Well, it'll be interesting. If we cut the budget, we don't have any money to do the work and training that's required for the recommendations. No, there's lots of things that we can do. Yeah.
Is Megan Roy from outside the initiate outside specialist from here?
And when can we expect those recommendations to be?
The goal was, we actually kind of talked about this a little bit at the faculty meeting. The goal was having all the information we need. The special education review, as well as the Act 173, impact, what positions would be impacted. by the end of this school year. Because come October, we've got to go right back into the budget season. And we've got to know what we're doing because that's for the, not for next year, but that budget that we're planning is for the following year. So we got to be kind of a year ahead of the game.
Do you plan on making her data publicly available?
No reason not to, yeah, as long as it's not revealing any student information or it's looking at small populations of students.
I have another special ed question. Do we have any present programs that we're running that we could solicit students from other districts to benefit from what we're providing, which would bring money into the district and help to defray some of the expense that we've done in developing those programs?
We've got the autism program that is over and run out of Ludlow, which is district-wide, but it serves mostly students outside. Cheryl was talking about raising the tuition quite a bit this year, and we had the discussions. There's Bridges and Horizons that are here, and that was used to bring a lot of students that were in outplacement back.
Okay.
I haven't checked to confirm the numbers, but I remember them talking that based upon hiring the staff to run those programs and subtracting it from the savings, one of the programs was around the $600,000 range that it was saving, and one of them was close to $2 million. If I'm
So
right.
I think that we need to publicize these things that we're doing to defray some of the expense, because when you look at the budget, if you don't see that we're bringing in money by providing these things for our students and then additional students, then the community doesn't understand that we're working on defraying those costs.
I'm gonna roll that into one of our future topics,
Yes.
still in this meeting, but just in terms of talking about, getting the word out. I think that's a really good place to go.
The Mount Holly budget, was that a level service budget that passed?
Yeah. But their level of service is a little bit wonky because they're putting money into reserves. They put that in here. Yeah, they put money in reserves. So it was level service, but it also included, some money to put aside for reserves so that if future repairs were needed, we didn't have to go out to bond.
Okay, they were like 2.97%.
Didn't we have a little bit of money that we put into the reserves from this budget, as well, from our level service budget?
All right, with that, we'll move on to the next order of business, which is planning an approach for any sort of public input that we want to get before that April 16th meeting. So this is separate from after we have approved the budget, how we want to get the word out and communicate with voters. This is about, is there anything that we as a board want to do in terms of outreach or getting input before we make that decision on which of these budgets we would put forward for the next vote? The answer could be none, no, that we're gonna wait until we have that budget and then really move to the next, to getting the word out. But we could also consider various ways, either individuals going to events and saying, I'm available, tell me what you think. Or bigger kinds of events. Some towns have organized, conversations around getting that kind of input that have been run by board members.
Well, I think the special ed issue is very important, and for the community to understand what we're doing to try to defray some of those costs and how it is working in a positive way. And the longer we run these programs, and hopefully the better we do running them, the more popular they will become, and the more people will want to send their kids to, benefit from it.
And I do think there's a conversation to be had, because I'm not sure common knowledge of the weights that students receiving special education services bring in terms of funding. There needs to be a better understanding of how that whole system. But I'm sure. The risk of publicizing those programs too much though, because I noticed there are a lot of vacancies right now in those programs. So to publicize, oh, we have this thing, come to it, but you don't have the teachers is really risky.
Okay. Got it.
How does that work with open meeting law, with having something like what you're discussing, when you have members going and saying, let's do like a town hall, and you know, not everybody,
Capital.
yeah, so it was.
Yeah, that's a great question. So you are not speaking for the board, you are speaking for yourself. And you are gathering information that you can then share. But also in the actual outreach of even we can agree on what the board is putting forward in terms of these are the talking points of what we would like to share broadly. And then you can put that forward as the board agrees this budget achieves A, B, and C. You just have to be careful that if you are going beyond that, you're differentiating between my own view is and what the board has said.
Having a standardized, like singular presentation, you know, should those little meetings happen and all is very helpful. So you have a distinct and consistent message. Anybody who happens to bring that messaging.
And to my ear, these ideas are really fitting on this plan of approach to outreach to voters for the period between morning and the vote. So we can definitely compile a list of those kinds of points that we could also discuss at the next meeting that we could then all have and take forward to those pieces. Are there other ideas of what to have on that list? I know we talked about having kids actually join and talk about the programs that they are really enjoying.
We only have 2.5 weeks, not even to get this. So prior to the vote on the 16th, what about having, for instance, the Chester Telegraph put out something? We're going to have this meeting. We're interested in what you have to say. Send to the school board, something where they could send it to us, so it wouldn't be going to the Telegraph, but something eliciting responses about what you want to see in this new budget, what matters to you, so that we can take that into account. I think having little meetings here and there is going to be a problem. There's not a lot of time to plan them, for one thing. We have time to plan a good forum at the town hall between the next meeting, the April 16th meeting and the vote. And that's going to be important, but we want the information ourselves to be able to take into consideration for picking what we're going to set out to vote. So I don't see a forum happening between now and 2 weeks. 2.5 weeks from now. Not even, well, it is, 16 days.
I also wonder if it's too late for even that, because if you say, okay, everybody, tell me what you want, I kind of think like, where was everybody for the last year? That every meeting is
Or this meeting.
publicized and,
Right.
you know, come, please, come to the meetings, use public comment. Thank you for doing that. Very appreciated. Because they might flood us with things that are just impossible to even entertain at this late date.
How does that information gathered before the initial budget was voted on, or in what way?
No, not other than these meetings, where
Nothing
it's definitely
specific. Okay.
Yeah.
discussed multiple times, but we didn't have specific events.
And it was a level service.
Yeah, we weren't
So
increasing
we
it.
just looked at the budget that we passed the year before and added whatever inflation and new expenses for the same budget, and we put that.
Right.
And Lane had multiple, public forums talking about CLA
Absolutely.
and, the tax increase.
And the explanation system works so people could understand how, this is really just a small percentage of what you're paying.
Yeah, right. Just wondering if there was any information that was elicited earlier that might
But, don't think,
Well, we had forums at various schools. I did one at the elementary school last year. I'm shorthand did one, we all asked for community input.
I agree, there's not a lot of time to do that now, anyway.
Traditionally too, on the second vote around, a lot, and I may be wrong, but I think a lot fewer people show up to vote.
That's correct, right?
So,
And a larger proportion of them are parents who are
Right.
motivated to vote when there's nothing else to vote.
At the city, there was public comment last meeting. I think parents or parent that was eager to help in that manner of kind of a, let's say grassroots, but of community initiative. Of saying, hey, this is what's on the chopping block, is that something that people like the idea of?
Yeah, I think that's exactly right in terms of, but once the board has picked a budget to go forward.
So that's not something we have to even really navigate right now, right?
That's correct.
So basically, we're not talking about planning any approach for getting public input between now and the time we vote.
And yeah, unless there,
We pick a budget. Yes, that's.
I mean, yeah, basically, I mean, you can talk to people. That's the biggest thing is you gotta talk to people and explain to them what it all means. Because a lot of people they don't understand. I was one of those people for a long time. I said, vote the budget down. I was against it until I actually participated and understood what it meant. There is a faction of people who, no matter what you explain to them, they're gonna vote no. Because they're mad at the state, as I am as well. This education funding is a problem though, and this is what I tell people, you have to take this battle up with the state. You gotta show up and vote on the state level, because we can make these small changes here, but the small changes we make here greatly affect our kids' education. And the two, for me, it's super important on a local level for our kids to get the best education that they can. And I understand people are feeling the pain. I do. But the little bit we're gonna save for the lot we gotta throw out the window, I'm not so sure is the right route.
You had a very good comment today, on social media, that I like that, is like, we should paste that and it address concerns, but also it's very patient.
But that's the type of stuff we can all be doing as a board, just getting that info out to people.
before the vote, though, not necessarily before we choose
Yeah,
what.
Yeah, before the vote, but that's a separate entity.
Yeah.
yeah.
well, just,
Yeah.
we don't have to
Already
wait.
on there, so.
You can be doing
Oh, yes.
that.
So C, we're just not gonna do anything on that,
I think that's right.
except.
Other than
we
have
can
those
just have
conversations.
Personal conversations, but no approach from the board. So we're on to D now, right? Okay, sorry.
I think, see, we can think about for the next budget season that's starting.
Yeah. By then, we may have a whole bunch of new rules because of the new statutes coming in. So.
Any other suggestions to include on kind of a draft list that we can talk about next time? Or are we ready to move on?
Are you talking about C or D to D? For D, we could do phone banking, where, you
Yeah.
get a list of phone numbers and people in towns, and you have your little prepared budget statement. Tell them the things that are being voted on, when it's happening, where it's happening, and how important it is, and to please vote. Like a little script.
I think we ought to have a forum at the town hall. As well, and I don't know whether, I mean, we have 4 towns here, it isn't just Chester. Chester Town Hall is a really good place to do this, but maybe there should be one in Cavendish as well as one in Chester. But I really think that kind of thing where we show up and Lane shows up and you use those figures, you put them up in front of everybody, they get a chance to ask questions. I think that's like Jerry said, this is complicated. They don't understand this stuff. Even those, especially the new ones of us on the board are struggling to figure this out. And if we want to pass a level service budget, you have to explain why it works for them. I think those forums are really good. I've been to two, not on this subject. They were on Act 73. There was one in Norwich and there was one in White River recently. They were both really informative, confusing too, but that's a whole different issue. But the fact that they were there, taking questions, putting figures up, that was very helpful. And we have a much smaller issue, just this budget, to do it on. I think that would be effective, to be able to give people a chance to have a say and to understand what's going on, ask questions of people who could really answer it, who know what this budget means. You can go over those numbers later about it's gonna cost you $80 a year to keep all of these services. I think that is gonna carry a lot of weight. So,
I was gonna say, I
You know,
think it's
but I bet
probably
they
really
will.
frustrating to having been doing that.
Yeah.
And to have not.
They tend to be, there's a lot of folks that do show up for the original budget vote. For whatever reason, once that original budget vote happens, nobody shows up for the forums. It's hard. I'm hoping that maybe we can change that trend, but.
maybe have it here then instead of the town hall. I don't know. But it just seems to me that we have an obligation to get the information out. I'm not sure what the most effective way to do it is, but I really think we need to make an effort to do it, whatever that involves.
One of the things we found in the past is that does really differ by town. And so figuring out what works and what people respond to in our own towns is a good way to go. And then Chester also does have to be thoughtful about not having a quorum there.
Yeah, that's
Okay, just one.
So did we decide anything?
That from these ideas, I will compile a draft list to bring to the next meeting. That we can review, add to, and get to a more scheduled level. But I think that would make more sense after we have decided on that budget, because some of the talking points would differ depending on which budget it is.
Yeah.
And I see, are you encouraging us to individually speak? Is that what I'm hearing, to individually speak? But
Absolutely.
I think that's our job as board members, no matter what.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, on the budget piece, that's primarily a board, at least that's how the state views it. If you guys actually pull this off, it'll be the only board I know that ever did it. So
Ever did what?
That ever did what?
went out and
Awesome.
had forums and communications in terms of budget. My guess is probably because it's difficult to talk about things because how complicated the Vermont system is. It doesn't happen a lot. It may go a long way. So I like hearing the planning.
But isn't it true that the budgets that are put out again at the same level for the same budget tend to pass the second time, right?
My experience is limited. OSSD always passed.
Say they always
When we did Ludlow Mount Holly, they put the same budget out. It passed by a margin.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that brings us to new budget. And the next item is for, thank you. Did I say new budget? Yes, that's pretty bad. That too. Let's make a new one. The new business, which is the board to vote on whether there will be reduction in force notifications sent before April 15th. So just to summarize, because no matter what we do, we will not have a budget passed before April 15th. If a budget never passes, we are limited to 84% of last year's budget.
87.
87. Oh, that's so cool. 87% of last year's budget. So that would be lower than any of the budgets that we're considering. It is the case that that is true. We keep trying to pass budgets, and that is the amount for the entire year. So it is not the case that in every month we are limited to 87% of the previous year's budget. So we can go lots of different ways. I think the Robert's rules thing is make a motion and have that seconded and then have the discussion, because the motion kind of constrains what it is we are discussing. But this board has more traditionally just talked for a while until we get to the point of having a motion, and that seems okay too.
I'll make a motion that we're going to need to send out reduction force letters to the staff. Second, before
Did you say we are or not?
we have a duty to. Yeah.
So Sophie, that was Mike who made the motion to approve sending out reduction in force notifications as required, needed, and seconded by Jerry.
Does that mean discussion allowed?
That's right. Now we say, is there any discussion? And the discussion should be about that, but that's the.
So am I allowed to ask what happens if we were to not? But I'm just, I think
Yes.
I understand, but I want to make sure
That
that.
contract, we're not gonna have the money, we don't, we're gonna have the money to pay. And that's not true. Until we have a budget, we don't know what money we're gonna have.
Okay.
And we don't know where we're gonna make cuts again, that's up to Wayne and the principals. But we have to leave that door open for possibility. You know, we had that discussion last month, got on the overdose about, you know, losses and swaps. That's what we're gonna do, but that's what we end up doing. We have to send up a letter so that they have options.
That option has to be on it.
Ugly options, and the
Yeah.
options we don't want to exercise, but nonetheless, it has to be an option. This is what we can do, and we can do this, so we can.
We've promised them a contract and an amount of money, and if we don't pass this budget, we can't fulfill that contract.
And we'll miss an opportunity to lose one money contract.
Right, and the articles of both of the collective bargaining agreements specifically state that the board has to notify contracted employees as soon as possible. So we know something could happen, so we have to act.
If you do send out these notices, where do they go? Do they go to everybody? Or do they go to some selected?
Everyone gets.
So there's a couple of ways you could do it. So typically, most districts will just shoot them out to everybody. That might be problematic from a labor relations standpoint, considering that we are in negotiations with like the support staff. So it could be, look, if we shot out notices to everybody, it could look like we're trying to use that to manipulate the outcome of those negotiations.
How would it do that? With that, if it's universal, how would it influence the negotiations?
Just bringing up a possibility. We've got a pretty good union. I don't think that they would pursue an action like that. They've actually been a pleasure to work with on both sides. The other possibility is that we know that 87% of the previous year's budget's like 16 million. We know that we need 19 million something to operate right now. So there's a $3 million something difference. So the other option is we do RIF notifications just to get us to that difference, right? We know the maximum we can get is 16 million something to run the district next year under the law. So what we do is we just cut it down to that.
But how do you decide?
How do you,
Yeah.
how do you determine who
It's in
gets
the
them?
contract.
The union has set forth who gets jobs first.
There are
Yeah.
priorities,
That-
data certification, seniority.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the more complicated. But yes, the typical way is just it's a blanket. Everybody gets it.
I
But
would
I
like,
think that you do something like that, second off, people looking at, well, I have more seniority, that's who's over that person, I can bump them. Yes.
Yeah. I'm not saying it's a good option. It's an option.
And for, therefore.
I think it opens doors that aren't good.
The second one. All the more reason to pass a level services budget.
I move to amend the motion.
Yep.
I move that Michael's motion be amended to say, although it is not the intention of the board to risk positions of educators, we need to respect our obligation to the contract and provide timely notification to staff.
So that amendment would need a second.
Okay.
Great, we have seconds and thirds. All in favor to amending the motion that it would also include a statement that although it is not the intention to
Reduce, to have a reduction in force.
have a reduction in force, it is the responsibility of the board to consider.
To meet the obligations of the collective bargaining agreement.
Thank you.
And the level of budget that it eventually found.
All in favor?
All right.
Any opposed? Great, so the motion on the floor that we are still having discussion about at this point is to authorize administration to send out reduction in force notifications with that additional statement.
And to be clear, my assumption is it's to all.
Are you wanting us to specify that?
Yes.
That's better? Okay. So is there an amendment that this would be to all? A motion to amend. Great, that was, Lois moved to amend the motion that this would be reduction in force letters to all, and that was seconded by Penny. All in favor of the,
Wait, I'm sorry.
yep.
So did we just amend a motion that was already voted on?
No, we voted on the original, her amendment.
Yeah.
So the motion stood. Now we're amending it again.
And then
We only voted on the amendment.
Got it. Thank you.
So this is only on the amendment to the motion that the reduction in force letters go to everyone. And that has been seconded. So all in, any discussion? All in favor?
All right.
Any opposed? Okay, so we now have the amended motion that includes that the reduction in force notices would go to everyone, along with the explanation that it is not the intention to actually reduce force, but to meet the contractual obligation. Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
All right.
Any opposed? Okay, and the motion passes as amended. We don't have anything else on the agenda, so that brings us to our next public and board comment. So we'll start with public comment, if there's anyone in the room who would like to comment. And is there anyone online who would like to comment in this budget period? And any board comments?
I'll just briefly welcome our new board.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we'll definitely do that at the next meeting as well. Okay, our future meeting, our next meeting is on April 16th. That's a regular meeting. And is there a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn. I'll second it.
Jerry's on that one, seconded by Mike. All in favor?
All right.
Any opposed? And we are adjourned at 7:04 p.m.